Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Daily Standup. Hope everyone's doing well. And on this one, I'm going to show kind of pretty much where I got with my Rust microservice. So I'm going to pull that up right now, actually. So this is my Rust project. Again, I made it with Cargo. And I see one of you all kind of confirmed for me that Cargo seems like the way to go. So I appreciate that. Um, and so this is my main.rs file. Again, this is the entry point into my Rust application. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and then I'll just kind of really show you where I got with it and show you the error that I'm currently running into. So maybe someone can help me out too. So I'm getting a failed to connect to my RabbitMQ server. Looks like it's connection aborted. I think the connection string is correct. I'm just using the guest credentials on my local host server running RabbitMQ. So this is I have it running in Docker. So this is my container running RabbitMQ locally, and then I navigate to that port somewhere, and opens up my RabbitMQ server. There was a couple things I did check. I made sure that looks like guest can access virtual host. I think it's all set up correctly, unless somebody can point me in the direction that maybe it's not set up correctly, actually. And I have let me get to my queue. So I have a queue already set up for my engine data that you've seen me use in another part of my project. And I'm trying to connect to that host in this Rust application. And again, I still don't know really enough about the syntax to read this the same way I would read like C# and be able to kind of debug it in a way it's productive. So most of this came from ChatGPT and just random forums. So I can't really determine what the problem is yet, but that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, looking at the code, maybe if someone has any ideas. Because I think it's breaking. It's breaking here, right? Because it must be failing when it's connecting, and I'm pretty sure this is the right connection string. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But if we go to the stand-up board, that is exactly where I'm at. Right, is working on this prototype backend to really just be able to get this Rust microservice up and talking to my RabbitMQ server successfully. And once that's established, I think I'll be in a spot where I'm comfortable actually adding in this microservice into my prototype architecture diagram. And then once I do that, then I'll talk about it. So this is exactly where I'm at, and I think it's kind of cool to see because honestly, this stuff is always the hardest thing, right? Is just whenever you start a new language and you encounter errors and you don't know enough about the language or the syntax to get past the error. So it's like I'm in this the trial and error phase, and just like looking at Stack Overflow, ChatGPT, and everything that can help me out. ChatGPT, it took a few prompts before it actually gave me code that would actually compile. But once it compiled, yeah, I just started running into an error. So I'm not sure. I've tried a couple different variations. I've tried modifying the connection string. I tried something else. I can't remember now. I don't know if it's a problem with any of my dependency versions. If anyone knows, um, yeah, it's kind of really all I have to show on that because it's pretty much where I'm at. But once I get the connection established, what I will then do is pull up my microservice. Let me find it. I will pull up this microservice. Hold on, this microservice here that I actually post a message to that queue. So I'm gonna hit this endpoint with maybe just like Postman or something in the interim, and then have it post a bunch of messages to that queue, and then I want to see it my microservice or my Rust microservice process the incoming messages. I think that'd be really cool, and I think it'd be a really neat proof of concept because if I can send a ton of messages up to the queue, I want to see how fast I can really push this Rust program. And I think it's just kind of neat, right? It's always just learn something new, see what works, what doesn't. But yeah, so that's where I'm gonna be as soon as I get this being able to talk to it. There's just like weird syntax with Rust. What's going on with this double period here? Uh, it's just really weird. Like this stuff here, just like this two colons with the asterisk. It's stuff like that makes languages like it. That's always like I feel like the biggest learning curve, like moving from like C sharp or even JavaScript to something that's a little more based. It seems on a lower level language that could just the syntax is just harder to translate over. Even like moving from C sharp to F sharp is a bit of a challenge. The syntax is just so it's like it's different enough that it just makes it complicated. And also F sharp uh, doesn't have any brackets. It's all just indentation. So it's your spacing matters a ton. So like if you have an F sharp program and you said hey, and then your next line you tab over and then print line, but then if you have like a thing here and it's like the wrong space, like that's not going to compile. So it makes it hard. But F sharp is nice. I hope that I get a little more comfortable with Rust, but I just gotta go through a bunch of tutorials and do that. There was something else I was gonna show on this as well. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask more broadly. I'm just using VS Code. Is there a better text editor or a better even IDE to use for Rust? Is there I would assume that so I don't have any kind of like JetBrains license for any of their applications, at least not my personal machine. But yeah, I'm just using VS Code with the Rust extension, I believe. So I'd love to know if there's any kind of Rust extension that anyone uses that helps write some of the programs or helps with debugging or syntax or anything like that. I've seen some people use Sublime Text. I don't know. Sublime versus VS Code, I would always just lean towards VS Code just because it's got everything I need and it has all the extensions I'm used to. But yeah, if anyone knows any either extensions or really anything to help with write Rust, that would be awesome to know. I don't use too many extensions, at least not on my local VS Code. And then obviously I have what's it called, Visual Studio for Mac. And can I just go on a tangent for Visual Studio for Mac? I wish it was better. That's really where I'm landing with this. I wish it was better. I use JetBrains Rider at my work, and JetBrains Rider, and I use a Mac too. It's so nice. It's so fast. I mean, something like searching files is just like, it's unbelievable. If you ever worked in a big application in Visual Studio, searching across files is just a pain. It's slow. It takes, I don't know if Visual Studio doesn't index the files or whatever they do, but JetBrains must index it because it's like it pulls it up immediately, and it's like text, class names, file names, everything. So, but Visual Studio for Mac is, if you've ever seen me use it on here on my computer, it honestly looks like you're using VS Code, right? Do you see that? Like, this is VS Code, and then this is Visual Studio for Mac. Like, it's like, I could see if you were watching me program stuff, and I was on this, I would think I'm using VS Code too. I don't know. And they're dropping support for Visual Studio for Mac, unfortunately. I like it as I think it's a neat IDE option for Mac, but it's like 70% of the way there, right? It's just it's too different from the Windows Visual Studio to make it a seamless transition. If you're coming from a Visual Studio community, professional, enterprise, whatever it is on Windows, and you make a jump to Mac and you try to use Visual Studio for Mac, it's going to be a learning curve. At least that's how it was in my experience. It's like this stuff is all moved around different, you don't have the same options, and it just, I don't know. It's like it's just not there. And but plus they're dropping support, so it's not going to be an option that's supported long term. But to be honest, even though I don't really like it, and I'm using it now, I kind of wish they continued supporting it. To be honest, maybe like a few more years, or maybe if JetBrains Rider becomes free or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's my IDE tangent for the day. And VS Code is a text editor, so it's like you got to do a lot of configuration and stuff to get it to a full blown like IDE spec, of capability. So anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at in my Rust project, and I will see you on the next update.